Good morning, everybody. Fireworks have begun. I was going to go live later, but we'll just go live right now. Watch what's happening. So we've been bullish all week, okay? On Sunday, I talked about bullishness. Yesterday, I was telling my private group about bullishness. And CPI has yet again proven to be a one-sided event. So this huge run up here, you could see it basically traded below to start the week. It traded below the open price. First and foremost, it came up and took out Friday's high. That's this candle here. It's kind of blocked. This candle here was the high on Friday. Left equal highs. Yesterday punched above it, dropped lower. Came down to a 4-hour order block. It's pretty much been holding up in price. Let's see where new day opening gap was. An itty bitty new day opening gap down there. And yet again, higher time frame is king. You know, we're still moving higher. Should you feel like you missed anything? No. Have we been correct 100% as we have been like the last almost 8 months straight in terms of where price is going to go? Yes. Did it reach down to a draw presenting us with the power of 3 for the weekly range, at least up until this point? Yes. And again, has bullishness continued? Yes. Okay. Has bearishness continued within the DXY? Yes. Okay. Has the weekly bullish order block here that we've been watching failed yet? Yes. At least it looks like it's going to. So we'll see, right? You see this big wick in here? If you go to the futures contract for the dollar, this wick is not even relevant, right? So it's not even like a real thing. That was a liquidation event for this broker, TVC. The futures contracts for DXY doesn't show it. So it's just the risk that's in the market. You know, this type of thing can happen in Forex a lot more than it happens in like the indices. I mean, I saw this type of thing happen with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin was at like 50,000. And then it had a huge down wick that basically just liquidated people all the way down to like $3,000. So that was pretty crazy. But yeah, getting away from things outside of this, I've had this little eyeball here from pretty much the start of the week on Sunday. And everything has pretty much just continued, right? We thought about power 3, bearish for the DXY. We talked about why we believe bearishness will continue and what would change that opinion. Okay, and all that stuff has been, you know, pretty solidly still in alignment. You know, we got this wick here. And again, we got this weekly bullish order block that we're watching. So CPI, NFP, FOMC, there's specific protocols that you have to follow in terms of risk management and just like structuring your risk approach in certain conditions, specifically these conditions. And it requires you to drop your risk. It requires you to be fully aware of what's taking place and, you know, not be a cowboy. Okay. You don't want to be crazy on days like this. You don't want to be crazy ever. Okay. You don't ever want to overtrade, never over leverage. It's never going to be something that's going to be helpful to you. You may feel like it is because you're new. You may feel like it is because you're in a rush. You may feel like it is because maybe you hate what's happening in your life and you want to change it. But if you try to hurry this up and you act reckless and overtrade and over leverage, you're going to learn that years will pass, whether you want them to or not. And those same habits will be present in your trading. And it'll keep pulling you back, you know. It's like an abusive relationship. You know, you get satisfied and comfortable with getting abused and you just stay. just because it's comfortable or it's familiar or whatever the case may be. Or you may think things will change, but things won't change, and that's the same with this. If you overtrade and over leverage, if you take these types of days and don't have any type of adjustment or awareness to the risk that's involved, you will pay the price long term. You may feel like you're doing something right because you may get sometimes you might get it right. You may make up some of the losses you've taken just off catching one CPI move that was going in your favor. But if at any moment in the future it goes against you and your stop is 30 points or whatever your stop is, but CPI's single 1 minute candle runs 100 points against you, you're going to have to eat that. If you try to execute with real trading, with real funds, or even a funded account, before or during this news event, specifically during the news event, your stop will not only be disrespected, and you have to eat the whole loss if you're wrong, but the slippage will be insane. And you sometimes, most of the time, won't even be allowed to get in. Okay? And then it'll slip you in a position that you don't really want to be in. Like if you tried to execute up here, it'll slip you down all the way to the low or to the next candle that may form after 100 plus points is delivered. Okay? So these are the real risks that are involved. And generally, I don't really even go live with a CPI or NFP or FOMC. But I feel like this is good to talk about, right? Because most people don't talk about it because it doesn't sell courses and it's telling you that you need to chill out. And most people don't want to hear that. They want to hear, oh, blow smoke up my ass. I'm going to be rich tomorrow. And it's just not reality. Okay, I've been doing this for 6 years. And I can tell you that, I thought just like everybody else and got really punished for a long time until I changed my perspective and then things started to change. And seeing the results that students have by spending time and listening to the perspective and, following what we talk about. And just this year, seeing what's happened. There's clearly valuable insights that you need to consider, okay? You're not going to copy everything that I do, right? Your mindset may be a little different than mine in certain ways. You may have different rules. Maybe you have more. Maybe you have less. Maybe you trade different things. Maybe you're better on certain days than I am, or vice versa. It's going to be different, So some things that I talk about may not apply, but it's critical that you take what does apply and things that I talk about as non-negotiable pieces of information and you apply them. At least try them, like the 1 to 2 trades a day rule, the risk protocols that we talk about during CPI and FOMC and stuff like that. Like those are, in my opinion, should be non-negotiable. Okay. What's up, Tony? What's up, Mike? One of my superstar YouTube students, Tony, and one of my superstars in the making, Mike, in my private group. Good morning, beautiful people. But yeah, so looking at what's happened. Good morning, Joan, another one of my private group students. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Tyler, when CPI comes out before the open at 6:30 and has a big move, does that make trading? No, not necessarily. It just means that a lot of stuff has taken place, but it does mean that you're gonna have to lower your risk. I guess you could look at it as low probability. CPI days in general, NFP, FOMC, they're already automatically classified as low probability, just because you don't know what's going to happen. So you're going to have a low probability of getting it correct, and if it delivers too aggressively, it's going to exhaust some of the move. So it may not do anything. It may have a huge move and then come all the way back against you. So these are risks that are involved, aside from the lack of respect to risk parameters and stop losses and the slippage idea. Okay, that stuff is all relevant and heavily present during events like this. So it's really, really important that you don't take these days as like days that you push too aggressively. It's just not It's not worth it. ICT himself has said if you just decided to not take a trade at all during any of these news events at all and just skip them for your whole career, it's not going to have an impact on whether you're going to be successful or not. It'll actually make it so you take less losses, because on these days, especially if you're new, you're going to take losses. You're going to be incorrect. You don't have the slightest idea what is happening and what the risks are. So it's better to just avoid it entirely. But I have a lot of students that are now becoming pretty advanced, and I have traded and sometimes do trade CPI days, NFP, FOMC, both in my private group and then here on YouTube, and generally it's successful because I know what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll take losses. I'm not perfect. I'm just like anyone else. No one's going to be exempt, but there's ways to do things. But ideally, if you're new and you're just trying to get your footing to be profitable, just because we're live doesn't mean you need to think, oh, he's going to send a trade. I may send a trade today. We'll see after 6:30. We're going into the open and allowing this to kind of mature through the range. But we also may not. And you shouldn't have any issues regardless. It's good advice to look at these events and be extra cautious with risk, because if you take losses and you hear me saying this and then you take another loss during NFP or FOMC and you look back on your career, you're just going to regret it. You're going to wish that you followed what I'm saying and what most elite traders talk about, like ICT and some of the other really, really good traders on YouTube that are ICT concepts traders. Okay. So yeah, overall, I hope what I just mentioned is taken to heart, because it's very important. But overall, right, in terms of what price has done since Sunday, the bonds and yields obviously are still kind of a mess. But when we look at the DXY, okay, we see that it's doing exactly what we were talking about. The weekly bullish order block is the thing that we've been watching. The upper portion of this quarterly fair value gap, it's still something we've been watching. The possible market maker sell model scenario is still, in my opinion, underway. We do have this little eyeball here that's been here since Sunday. And if we go to the currencies, right, we've been calling for price to potentially continue going higher. It has continued, at least for now. Let me kind of clean some of this up. So we've got this weekly bearish order block, right? I said that it most likely will fail. We have this order block. We have the quarterly order block, the 3-month perspective, right? You see that prices traded into that. We left these lows, and it's just the way it is. It's just been continuing. Structurally, price has not changed to go from bullish to bearish overall. Short term, yeah, retraced a little bit. We're inside this upper portion of the breaker. Okay, it's still now got back above it. It's now above the quarterly order block as well. Okay, it's this right here. So this has been just a massive wick. Okay, and all it's done is traded into this, and it's kept the structural integrity to continue going higher. Okay, so we're going to continue to watch that. And CPI has pretty much, been in line with that. Okay, so with that being the case, there's no reason to think it's going to short unless it proves otherwise. Okay, and we have these highs up here, we have relative equal highs. So this is going to be a pretty solid target for us to identify going for the rest of the week. Will it for sure get up there? Who knows? It's still CPI week, and this delivery may cause the rest of the week to be a bit shaky. That's just the way it is. It's not something that's super exciting, but trading shouldn't be overwhelmingly exciting every single second of the day. It's exciting, yeah, because we have a passion for this, but again, you got to manage the highs and lows. You have to manage your mindset, and you can't just be in here trying to be, like I said, a cowboy. There's times to push, there's times not to push. And this is a time to not push. This is a time to gather intel. And specifically, if we're going to find an opportunity during NFP, FOMC, CPI, the protocol has to do with the risk being dropped, like I mentioned earlier. And you're going to look for things that take place and liquidity that's still available after the open, given that, the news event already just came out. Okay. So we got to let things mature and see what it's going to leave available based on the liquidity pools that I talk about that big list that I give you that hopefully you guys have been seeing is extremely valid and very, very consistent in terms of what it utilizes and targets, right? So, it's kind of the perspective we're going to have. And like I said, everything is still intact going higher. We just see that this was a decline, reached lower. It got inside this accumulation phase, right? It looks like it's going to be a distribution delivery, basically push price and respect this. So this is a good sign that supports the price is going to continue going higher. Okay, so that's where we're going to keep our attention, all right? And until it changes, nothing changes. We got relative equal highs here. We have the high here from previous week, so it's a previous week's high. So that's what my attention will be on. Okay, we got this down delivery. We got a failure to break the low. I think there's not really any S&T there. I guess there kind of is. Like you see how, here, let me zoom in. So you could see this candle here, right? It's a lower low. And this is a higher low, okay? Or actually it's kind of the opposite, right? This is a higher low here. Faster pace delivery in the British pound, but they both have delivered, okay? So it's turned around. It's all still in line with the buy side delivery that we've been continuing to push and talk about. And we've had a pretty excited reaction, okay? So that's what we see in the currencies. And when we look at the indices, right, what have we been talking about? We've been calling price higher. We have not deviated from that this whole entire move lower. On Sunday, we talked about how this could have been anticipated to basically be manipulation. All through last week, we also watched this 8-hour fair value gap, which turned us back into paying attention to the highs and continuing to support the buy side delivery. Okay, you go to the weekly chart, just for completeness sake. We have the failure to get to this fair value gap, both on the S&P and the Nasdaq. And we see the straight delivery to the fair value gap in the Dow. Right, we got the S&T at the highs up here, which initiated that reaction to go lower. But the failure to break down below this, the failure to break through our structural invalidation levels, which has to do with 3 PD arrays, obviously stayed intact. Okay, nothing got disrespected from this weekly time frame, which is where our narrative comes from, like where we think price is going to go to on the lower time frame. It comes from the weekly and monthly time frames, and the daily, obviously, if we can make them all agree. So, with that being the case, we've just been continuing to push price higher, and obviously you can see CPI has further solidified that. If price was going to upset that, I'm assuming that they would have used NFP or CPI to do so. So it hasn't, right? It's pretty much just continued, right? So if we go to the 1 hour chart, we could see that it's continuing to go higher still, right? So we got the buy side up here. It's a previous week's high. You notice how the previous week's high here was already taken. And then we opened the week, and prices basically declined, respected these lower levels, and it's just continued to push higher in the market maker buy model. Okay, if you look at the S&P, we have accumulation, we have a reaccumulation, and then we got the smart money reversal above this high after it failed to get to the weekly fair value gap down here. And then we got that first inversion, which is also the first distribution. And the price has been pushing ever since. And now if this is going to be within the second stage distribution, and we are going to continue, as you guys know, when we get to this portion of a price swing within the market maker model concepts, market maker buy and sell models, generally it's going to be a fast move that pushes away from that. And has that remained true? Yeah. Okay, and CPI was the catalyst within this market maker buy model second stage distribution. So we'll see, right? We'll see if it wants to get up here. I'm assuming, because nothing's changed, that is going to be the case. So that's where the majority of our attention is going to be for opportunities. Okay, it's going to be to the buy side. We are in pre-market open. Okay, so things could change, right? It could end up reversing at some point after the 6:30, and the kind of pulling back against what CPI has done. It can either do it entirely, but we're going to need more evidence to support that, or it could just do a pretty strong rejection back into the current range that's been delivered off CPI, come back down, sweep some of the people that are trying to chase price because they see this big run, and then just continue to march in the direction of the higher time frame narrative on that weekly chart. Okay, so this is all intel that we have to observe until we can decide on making a decision. Okay, when you see a big candle like this, the first thing you do, you need to relax, because 99% of people see this candle and they're trying to push price. They're trying to get involved right now because they think they're missing something. As you guys know, those of you that have been with me for a long time, either for the last 3.5 years or just in the last 6 months, we don't chase price. Okay, we let the sheep get slaughtered. Okay, we're not going to be part of that group. And we don't fear missing moves because, like you guys have seen, simply in the past 2 weeks, let alone the last 3 years or the whole year this year, there's so many opportunities on a daily basis, on a session-to-session basis. We only obviously focus on the AM session here for the live calls, but man, like I point out so many opportunities. And even with the vast amount of opportunities we have, we still stay within the 1 to 2 trades a day, because I practice what I preach, and you need to follow these rules. You don't want to be sucked into doing way too many executions. For one, if you're a live trader and you have real funds, even if you're in like Top Step and they have a live fund, like live funded account where you're actually trading live money, you still have commission costs. And if you're taking 50 trades in a day, the commission costs will just add to your negative, portion of your opportunity. It can eat away at your profits, but it can also compound how big the loss is. Most people aren't profitable that are on live, right? And trading live in front of people, or even trying to teach people. So they don't talk about this, okay? But this is a reality in this industry, okay? And if you're going to look to be a professional, you have to understand these little intricacies and listen to someone that understands that this is a thing, okay? And that's why you should not overtrade or over leverage, because the cost gets larger in terms of commission the larger your lot sizes are and the more trades you take. And also, if you're trying to journal, okay, right now I'm making the argument for not overtrading and over leveraging, right? So if you're going to journal and you're going to follow instructions and do what you're being told to do, because it's what most successful people do in this industry, how are you going to justify journaling 50 trades in a day and remembering all the details and how you were thinking, and including all the different things that you're supposed to include when you're trying to journal effectively? You won't do it. It'll encourage you not to do it. Okay, so that's just another reason why overtrading and over leveraging, aside from the commissions, aside from the fact that overtrading and over leveraging will be the reason you fail, no matter how long you trade, no matter what you trade, if you let it plague you. So you got to just keep this in mind. Okay, and new traders, it's hard to submit to this, but at the same time, if you're struggling right now, you got to make changes, even if you've been trading for a week or a month or 2 months or just a year. Okay, no matter when you started trading, no matter how much experience you have, this is going to be universal. So hopefully I've convinced you, because if I don't convince you, the market's going to convince you by you blowing accounts, you making the same mistakes, regret, all these different things. Okay, so if you feel that changes need to be made, and this is something you could reasonably do, which I don't see why it wouldn't be, I definitely encourage you to make these changes. Or at least consider what I'm talking about. Maybe continue to, have these things, right, over trading and over leveraging in your trading experience until you get sick and tired of it. But I encourage you to just take my advice, okay? So yeah, before 6:30 starts, if you guys get value from the content, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps me get in front of people that need help, or people that just be able to provide more value and make this community even more valuable than it already is, aside from what we already do. I always invite anybody, right? Whether you're new, whether you have 20 years experience, whether you're 18 or 65, which I have students within that age range, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, and your support is definitely appreciated. But yeah, do you guys have any questions before the 6:30 open comes, or like the New York AM session open comes? There's nothing to do right now. You're not missing anything. Notice how I haven't went to the 1 minute, the 5 minute. That's very intentional, okay? Because I'm not concerned with what price is doing here. Let people get wrecked. We're not going to get wrecked, okay? We don't get wrecked, okay? So let me know if you guys have any questions. If not, I'll get into some of the other things I was planning on talking about. Can you guys hear me okay and see things okay? Forgot to check in with you guys. Yeah, let me know that too in the chat if you could. Yep, all right. Rin, welcome. I'm assuming you're new. I haven't seen you before. So welcome. Okay, appreciate y'all confirming. Yeah, hopefully you guys didn't do anything crazy yesterday. I mean, there was opportunity. I was live with my private group. But yeah, like I said, this whole week, you should be at half risk already. Okay. What's up, Yasin? Oh, okay. I know who you are. Welcome, Rin. I think you told me your real name. I forgot. I kind of forgot. Sorry about that. But yeah. Yeah, do you guys have any questions? I want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity before. Oh yeah, Elena. Sorry about that. But yeah, I appreciate you hopping on, seeing what we got going on. You won't regret it, I'm sure. A lot of the students that you see in the chat right now, they've been with me for at least the last 6 months, some for over a year. So those are students you can also ask questions about, right? But of course, you can always hit me up, and I can point you to where to go. So, but yeah, I wouldn't doubt that we find something today. But I always got to set your guys' expectations properly, given the certain circumstances and current market deliveries. So yeah. If you guys don't got any questions, we can start breaking down what's happening here on this lower time frame. So if we go to the 8 hour, right, we already kind of looked at the daily and the weekly chart. Remember, that's where we get our narrative from. The lower time frame means absolutely nothing if you don't have an idea, at least a rough idea of where the higher time frame is going. Because if you don't root yourself in this higher time frame first, and don't just jump to the 1 minute, if you don't start here, anything you see on the lower time frame can be very deceiving. Okay, because you may think that, price is bearish because you've seen this, delivery here. Watch, if we go to like the 1 minute, you may have been thinking, oh, well, this is all you're looking at, so this must be bearish, right? If that's your perspective and you're disregarding the actual storyline, like where price is going on the higher time frame, you're going to get caught up in something like this and then question why, and then start beating yourself up, and all this negative crap comes into your head just because you simply are not calibrating yourself properly. So this was just a retracement. It was a very short term. Anytime anything is going against the overall narrative, right, the higher time frame, it's counter trend. So counter trend is also a time when you lower your risk. right? So it's very important to understand where price is headed so you can understand how to calibrate your risk. Okay, it's very important to understand that not every moment in the market is going to be traded the same way in terms of risk parameters. Because if you are trading like that, right, and every moment is going to be hypothetically 1%, you're not going to be able to mitigate the losses very effectively. Because losses are going to come. You got to plan for them. If you go on a win streak, you got to have a plan for what you're going to do to manage the highs. And then if you go on a losing streak, you got to have a plan on how to manage the lows. But you also want to be able to have an expectation as far as when those circumstances will arise, both wins and losses. Okay, if you're counter trend trading and you're new, expect to lose. But as long as you're rooted in the higher time frame and listen to the things that we've been talking about for 8 straight months and 3.5 years in my private group, hopefully this year you guys have seen. I mean, every single week we've had an idea of where price is going to go, and it's done it. We've proven high 80 to 88% strike rate just for executions by itself. I haven't went below that, and I've proven it. Not only from me being live, but also showing the funded account dashboard, which I'm working on an Apex account too, so that I can show you guys again that this isn't just like a random thing. It can happen with every single engagement you choose to operate within, whether it's a personal account or a funded account. And we never go over 1 to 2 trades a day, and I'm still able to get there. So it kind of shatters the opinion that, that's taking opportunities away from me, like just limiting yourself to 1 to 2 trades. Some people don't understand that less is more in this industry. It's really cliche, and they hear that all the time, and so will say it, and this person will say it, but being a new trader, we don't really want to listen to good advice. We think we know what's going on. We think the market's going to bend to what we want it to do, and what we want to do doesn't have to be changed, when that's just completely incorrect. We don't know what we don't know when we first start. So it's good to be around communities like this. It's good to get around people that give you the realities of things and don't blow smoke up your ass, because that's just going to be advice that's going to hurt you. Okay, and that's the last thing that I want to see happen, because I love this industry. It's hurt me, but it's also done a lot of positive things for me. And many of the students in the chat right now are also a testament to what we do. Like Tony, for example, he's passed like 6 funded accounts, maybe more now, since he started with me, I think a little bit under a year ago, right? Like back in January. Tony, if I'm incorrect and you've been here for longer, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah. So there's a method to the madness, and there's perspectives that you need to take into consideration. And this is a place that you will get given the realities, and some people can't handle it. Some people want me to take trades every 5 seconds, but those same people are the same people that blow accounts every day. They've probably spent thousands of dollars on resets for funded accounts, or funded thousands of different accounts, hundreds of accounts. And, they try to, think that they have nothing to change, and come here trying to impose what they want, to see on what it is that I do. And this is just not an environment for that. There's plenty of people that are trying to entertain you by taking 50 trades in a day while they're secretly blowing their accounts and then showing up as if nothing happened, or blowing accounts on live calls and then trying to pretend that they're not, while deep down inside they're, in turmoil. So that's not at all the case here. And you guys that are new will see it very, very soon. And I'm hoping to be able to bring on some of my superstar students on some of these live calls, so they can give you like their perspective. They become very good. I have a student named Harley who's he has to be the best student I've had in the last year in terms of how quickly he's learned. That may change over time, because everyone's different. Some people take longer, but their success is more intense, right? And some will take longer than others, But I feel like Harley, given the fact that he's learned so quick, and some of you guys in here too, like Tony and Mike probably eventually too. You guys all have value to give, even if you're brand new. There may be questions that you ask that others may not have even thought of, even if they've been trading for a while. You may find a solution to a problem that maybe hasn't been mentioned, and, experience is obviously very important, but, time doesn't always reflect experience. Okay. You could be practicing the wrong stuff all the time, and then you have 10 years of experience, but you still don't have the answers and you're still doing ridiculous things, so focusing on the right things is the most important. And it's hopefully what I've been able to push you guys into, most of you guys. I know a lot of you guys, that is the case, like Tony and Mike, he's a little bit new, Jones a little bit new, my brother, I'm Reckless, right? He's been doing some pretty incredible things too in terms of progress. So, it'll be different for everybody, but hopefully I've been able to get you guys on the right track. And so, yeah. What's a good time to learn, though? You mean time like a session? There's no best time, depending on your time zone. I remember you're in Belgium or something. So I'm not really too sure what the time is currently out there. But for me, I'm in California, so waking up at this time is perfect. I get up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning every day, get ready to hop on, and then I hop on and trade the AM session. If you're trading the indices, you want to be at least in the AM or PM session, because London session it's not a London asset. It's not a European asset. It's a US asset. So because that's the case, it's going to make the most moves during this time, specifically during news events or after the 6:30 open, AM Pacific Standard Time. Learn fast. Okay. So you mean the length? So that's a question or a subject that's very subjective. I have students that are still struggling that have been with me for 3.5 years, but I have students that took 6 months and they're already funded. I have some that took a year and a half, and they quit their job. So it really depends on you as the person, how much you're studying, whether you have good advice, whether you're not you're taking the good advice and not flip-flopping over and over. It has a lot of different factors that determine that. So there's no set in stone time window for you to learn. But I would say a year is reasonable to get the fundamentals. Sometimes 6 months because of how I teach and what I point you to, because I block out a lot of the nonsense. If you hop on ICT's YouTube channel and you're just bouncing around, or you're watching this guy and this person teaches smart money and you're mixing his with ICT's and vice versa, that's going to extend your learning curve because you're not going to be able to focus on the right things. You're taking too much advice from too many people. So it stretches you thin in terms of what you need to focus on. And you can't have a solidified opinion. That's why, all my students, I tell them, this YouTube channel, if you like what I do, if you like my approach, if you like ICT concepts, I'm an ICT purist. You're not going to find MACD. You're not going to find supply and demand here. You're not going to find anything outside of ICT concepts, because that should be how it is. Even if you're trading supply and demand or some of these other things, that's what you're going to focus on, focus there. Don't go into anybody else's stuff unless you're looking for psychological perspectives, because that is universal. Okay, how people deal with their losses and all these things. Some people are obviously better than others, but it's best to keep your sphere of influence, which is a subject I talk about all the time with my private group. I think I've talked about it here too. But your sphere of influence and who you allow to be in your mind and guide you is so important. Because first of all, most people suck at trading, and they can't even do at a minimum what we do, and just go live and point where price is going to go, and put their credibility on the line, and then they see it work out. Most people don't even do that because they're uncomfortable. I don't care if I take a loss. It doesn't concern me what people feel about my trading. I know the withdrawals I take. I have a lot of people that have seen what I've been able to do. 3 times a year I show my big profits, but that's not the main focus. But I know that some students need to see that for validation, and I understand. I needed that too. I want to keep your guys' sphere of influence really tight. And if you're here, stay here and watch ICT concepts. I point to some other mentors that are actually good, that I verified myself, that I have a personal relationship with. So that's a different story because they're ICT purists. But even then, they use different approaches within the realm of ICT concepts. So I use 4 models, okay, within ICT's approach, and he has like hundreds of different approaches, right? But you're not going to need all of them. You're not going to need all his concepts. Not every video or subject is going to be worthwhile to you. But that's where having a mentor like me or just a community like this is so important, because you can ask those types of questions. Hey, is this important? Should I focus here? Right? And then you can get the answers fairly quickly. But again, it's very important to keep your sphere of influence tight and not be studying like, I think you were talking about the FTMO teaching stuff that they got, some of their resources. Because you found me, okay, and you found ICT concepts and you're aware of it, and maybe some people have mentioned this before, I really, really encourage you to just stay here and get away from FTMO's thing, right? Honestly, FTMO is one of the harder to pass things because they have the 30-day thing. I'm not sure if it changed and they made it unlimited. They may have, in terms of the time that it takes to pass a funded account. If they change that and they have unlimited, that was the first funded account that I had. I was 400K funded with them for about, a little bit over a year. And then all of a sudden regulations came in and they booted me out and they took my $60,000 withdrawal, it put a nasty taste in my mouth. Luckily, I had a personal account that kept me afloat and I knew how to trade. I know how to trade. So it didn't really affect me too much. But you got to be very cautious when you're dealing with these funded accounts. And then, like I said, your education. So because you found me here, you're going to want to stick to either these live calls and the things that I'm talking about, take my advice, and that's going to push you into ICT concepts solely. So you're going to have a focused approach, and you're not going to be bouncing around and feeling like, does this work? Does that work? All of ICT's concepts work. I'm proof. The students in this group are proof. The almost 2 million subscribers are proof on ICT's channel. So the question of whether something works or not is already answered. This stuff works. The real question is going to be how long it's going to take you, right, to study, how dedicated you're going to be to studying, and obviously the inner battles and things that you're going to have to deal with, which I can help you overcome if you're vocal about them and do decide to stick around this, this channel and the things that we do. Okay, let me see. But isn't it better to understand everything? So that's a good point, right? It's good to understand the basics of retail, just so you could see how ICT concepts basically weaponizes those approaches against them, like support and resistance, for example. That is completely ridiculous. There's real support and resistance that's shown in ICT concepts using things called PD arrays. And we'll be able to get into that maybe separately, but you'll get into it if you watch ICT's concepts or his content right away anyway, because it's like one of the main pillars and the points of interest, pretty much the things that actually work, and you'll learn why and all that eventually. But going back to your question, is it good to understand everything so you can have most confluences? The confluence aspect, when you're comparing normal traditional retail logic to ICT concepts, it's a inverted confluence. So if retail sees a bull flag, okay, we're probably going to see it be a fake bull flag, depending on the context. But for the most part, it flips it upside down. All the normal stuff, like I said, is weaponized against them. And that may sound crazy because you're fairly new, right? But that's just the reality of it. That's why 95% of people fail, because the water that they're drinking from, the well they're drinking from, is completely tainted and engineered to basically pull you away from actually looking at price itself and the story it's telling you, which I break down very clearly and teach regularly, right? The language of trading is what's depicted through ICT concepts. There's an algorithm that moves price, and there's logic that algorithm refers to when it comes to how price delivers. Okay, and what ICT concepts is basically describing the language and how to read price's story that it's telling you, so then you can understand what's actually going on. And the evidence that this stuff works, obviously, is shown in my live calls. It's shown from the things that I talk about, but specifically, it's taught obviously through ICT, and he's been doing this for probably closer to a decade, if not a full decade now. Basically just, and he's pumped out more profitable traders than any other concepts. Every leaderboard for pretty much every single funded account has an ICT trader in it or multiple in the top 10 leaderboards. Okay, pretty much all of them. The biggest, largest payouts, which have been 2 million, or I think 2 million, 2.1 million with Kane Trader, or Trader Kane, that's his name. He's an ICT purist. And then Jade Cap, who's also an ICT purist, who they've both been trading for over 10 years, and they're all on the leaderboards, and they have the biggest payouts, 2.5 mil and 2.1 mil. Okay, I'm obviously not making that incredible withdrawal, like that level of withdrawal, but I do well. Okay, I do enough, and you don't need to have that crazy lofty goal. You may get there. I've heard that women are a little bit better when it comes to trading because their mindset's different than men. We're like animals, okay, competition, okay, constantly. And women are kind of just, a lot of times more mellow and chill. At least that's what ICT's said. And I've talked to multiple women that are good traders, and it's kind of, you kind of notice it. So maybe, that'll be something in your corner, and any other women that hop on this call, maybe watch this and hear this. Maybe, you'll have a good chance just by default, because your mindset may be a little bit more mellow than most men. Oh yeah. Oh, good. I got you hooked already. Perfect. Yeah. Once those hooks are in, once you start studying, it's a wrap, Yeah. That's another good point too. Women take less risks. They're less competitive, although obviously everyone's still competitive. This is a competitive, mental sport pretty much. But yeah, women are more, more calm in many cases, apparently, and from what I've seen, from what ICT has said and what others have said about it, I do think that is actually a fact. I know that the natural tendency of a man's mindset definitely was something that kind of wrecked me in the beginning. I was trying to do things too quick. I was taking bad advice. I thought I knew everything. And, I was quickly humbled. Not quickly, it took like a year for me to be like, all right, I need to reevaluate what's going on, so, but yeah, there's another trader too, Tanya Trades. She's also a pretty spectacular trader. It's pretty funny. One of my students named Tony in the chat right here, I think it was him that said that from what he's seen, when he compares it to Tanya Trades, who has a much bigger following than me, obviously, because she was shouted out by ICT, he compared what we do for like a couple weeks and said that, from what he's seen, in terms of what plays out and how we do things, he said that I'm potentially better than she is. I don't necessarily see it that way. She's spectacular, and I haven't really dug too much into what she does, but I'll take your guys' word for it if you're going to compare me, and that's the opinion. Why not? The whole year, every single week, we've known exactly where the weekly candles are going to go. We've been hitting high 80% strike rate, which has been proven. Like I said, I have shown dashboards, and like you simply hop on the live calls and you see that it's pretty incredible. It's literally every single day there's something to talk about, and every single week we're getting it correct since the start of the year. From the huge decline that started to the low that was formed this year, all the way up until where we're at now. And again, this has been recorded. All this, this is a big statement. And if I didn't prove it live, I wouldn't be saying this. If it's not verifiable, but it is. It's verifiable through all the videos that I've done throughout the whole year, both from YouTube, but obviously my private group students. They've seen it every single day because we go live 5-6 days a week for the most part. And then, of course, 2 times here on YouTube. And then I share some stuff in the free Discord. But yeah, I say all that to basically, just give you confidence in what it is that we do. And so you can be confident that you're not going to waste your time here. Because that's a big thing. I wasted so much time on idiots that didn't deserve to be looked at or listened to. And I paid the price very, very intensely. And, life's already hard enough. We all have our problems. And the last thing we need is some idiot blowing smoke up our ass, lying to us because they're trying to siphon money from us so they can live some, crazy life without having to trade, because that's kind of the case for a lot of these mentors, right? They're The only thing they're mentoring you on is how to lose money, and basically giving or getting you to give them charity money so they can live their life while you struggle and constantly feel like you need to hear the next thing that they say, when most of it it's not even helpful anyway, you know. So yeah, I'm glad that I got you hooked on ICT concepts. You'll see that you'll see pretty quickly when you watch the 2022 stuff. Like I said, that there's something here, and hopping on these live calls will just further confirm that ICT is not the only one that can do things. He's not only sounding confident in his stuff. There's actually thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people that are trading his concepts that have success in some form or fashion. Not everyone's going to obviously be spectacularly successful, making $2 million withdrawals, but you don't need that. All you need to do is make a reasonable income that can support your life, okay? Like double what your current income is, at least, so you can have a buffer. And then, whatever you choose to do, if you hit that milestone, whatever you choose to do after, obviously the sky is not the limit. You can do whatever the hell you want, as long as you know how, and this skill set is universal. No matter what happens in the world, no matter who's in office in any of these countries, no matter what happens, as long as we have trading, we'll always be able to have an income as long as we trade well and understand what it takes to do so. And thankfully, that's what's presented when you're watching ICT concepts or learning ICT concepts. Okay. So yeah, hopefully that was some value to you guys, especially some of you guys that are new and basically are trying to get convinced that what you should focus on. It's very clear when you have someone that knows where to push your attention, who's not trying to live by ego. I could care less what people think about me. Okay. I know what my life consists of. I know what I'm doing, and I know the students that are being impacted by the stuff that we do. There's no crazy expectation, especially if you're new. You want to give yourself at least like a year, maybe two. Not that it will take that long for sure. Like I said, I have a student that has done spectacular things, even had a better month than I did last month. I think he made like 10 grand in the month or close to it on a live account. So within a year, he hasn't really invested a lot of money either. The only investment, I believe, was in me as the mentor to work one-on-one with me. And from that point on, he came to me when he was 3 months in, and he was obviously not profitable, didn't know what to do. Then, beyond, 6 months, right? And then beyond that to a year, he now has a funded account, and he's making more money than his parents are. And, he's not even 21 yet. Okay. And he hasn't even been trading for half the time that I've been trading. So, it's a pretty strong testament to how powerful this stuff is here. And, aside from me, it's a testament to how powerful ICT's concepts are. And, they're just beyond valid. He knows something that most people don't know. And he's giving a lot of it away for free. So some students will need guidance on how to navigate that stuff. Or maybe some concepts are complicated, or maybe they want to speed up their learning a little bit, at least conceptually. And that's where, a resource like my private group comes in. It's an apprenticeship, right? The enrollment is obviously closed right now. It closed last month. But, when it comes around again, those of you that may spend time with me here that are new, if that's something you want to engage in, and you want more of a one-on-one type vibe versus just the 2 days here on YouTube, which in itself is powerful, right? But if that's something you want or think is going to be eventful to you, that's always available. I'm in no way saying that you have to do that to be successful. And honestly, it's not for everyone. Okay, it's very tight. It's a very small group. If I wanted to blow it up, I could come out here and show $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 days, every other week. If I wanted to, but that's not the focus. The focus is getting you to learn. I could care less what people think about my profitability because I know what I'm doing, and seeing the students succeed is kind of a testament as well. So, and if that's not enough and someone needs to be eyeballing my bank account, then this is not the channel for you. you know. So, but most of you guys that come here after one video, you get a feel of, you know, what it is that we do. So you understand the vibe and kind of what's to be expected here. And, you know, the expectation is trading excellence. And I think we do a good job of making that the priority. So yeah, just a little bit of housekeeping information. Yeah, so we see that price is pretty much expanded. Okay, it's got up here. It's taken out the stops. We'll see what happens going into the 6:30. We have 30 seconds. And go to the 1 hour. Again, unless it breaks down below this low, I don't expect it to really dig too deeply. Unless, of course, we break this low, show little to no respect to these levels, and then DXY expands and gets above the highs up here. If that takes place, then obviously we may have to adjust what we think price is going to do for the remainder of the day. But again, we don't take trades at 6:30 or right at 6:30, right at the open. We got to let price print. There's things called macros. Okay, every last 10 minutes and every first 10 minutes of every hour. Okay, that's when price generally looks to expand aggressively towards liquidity of some kind, or that's when it makes moves generally. It may set up before that, like it may hang around, and then all of a sudden that time comes in, or 5 minutes before or 5 minutes after the last 10 minutes and first 10 minutes of every hour. You know, once that comes in, a lot of times that'll be the time when price spools, okay, which means price expands towards a particular level or sets up the volatile move targeting some form of liquidity. And in terms of what liquidity is important, right, what levels you should focus on, I have a list in my free group, and I talk about it here on the live calls we do, and every Sunday, which the whole process I call it liquidity mapping, and it's pretty much just mapping out important liquidity pools. There's so many highs and lows. You know, the question is which ones are important, and that question is answered by the list of liquidity that is used on a daily basis. They're there every day. It's just further evidence that there's always going to be an opportunity to target something, or at least make sense of what's happening, like where it's going. So that's just one of many critical pieces of information that answer a lot of the questions people have. Our liquidity mapping principles. Okay. So yeah, again, prices ran up here. We're still in a range. Okay, so overall the week, this is Sunday over here. So the week overall has pretty much went sideways, and now we've kind of jumped up, taken out buy side. Let's go take a look at what the three indices are doing. So we do see a discrepancy within these highs here. So that's something we definitely want to pay attention to. The Dow looks like it failed. So if there is going to be shorts that take place, say it does fail to get up here. Well, the Dow, given the failure swing, if it was to displace and go lower, that would be the weakness leader if we were to go lower. I don't assume that that's going to happen right now. There's just not enough from these upper time frames to justify that. And even if price uses this and then rejects and breaks this low, we still haven't missed anything. You know, we're gathering intel. We still haven't hit the macro that we like to trade within, which is 6:50 to 7:10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is basically this hour, but 50, and then the next hour up until 7:10. Okay. So I'm going to prefer to wait, let price print mature a little bit further. I'm still solidified in my opinion that price is still potentially going to go higher. There is somewhat of a red flag with the failure swing here. If that holds, that may cause an upset, and we may look to dig a little deeper. But if we are going to blow this high out, again, this is what we call a market maker buy model. And if it is going to expand and actually blow that out, it's going to have to be quick. And we're going to have to respect this 8-hour fair value gap. Fair value gap is literally just the little gaps between price like this, for those that may be new. Okay, these little gaps in price, right? There's a lot of them, and they're used all the time. Like it was here, like it was here, like it was here. Okay, so it's constantly in price, and that's called a fair value gap. Okay, and they are very, very useful, and we use them every day. Okay, so we can see that it's pretty much above this one on the 8-hour for the Nasdaq. We have an order block here that says down candle. Okay, and the high here, when it breaks above that, generally it changes the state of delivery if it was going lower and created this like a down candle, which is a bullish order block. Once price breaks above it, even if it's a wick, but preferably we want to see it close above it, that generally changes the state of delivery from, in this case, going lower to going higher. So with this target here being so close, with us still being bullish, with us respecting these levels, this is also an order block, right? So it hit the order block, pushed away. We broke back through this, which turned this into an inversion, because when these get broken through, they create inversion levels, real support and resistance, okay? Because that's taken place, again, that solidifies our opinion that nothing's changed overall, and price will still look to continue to target the buy-side delivery. And unless that changes, which would have to see this break down below this low and pretty much disrespect these levels, unless that happens, we will keep our opinion aiming for this previous week's high. Previous day's highs, previous week's highs, previous month's highs, those are all the most important levels, or some of the most important levels in our liquidity mapping process. So if you're new, those are levels I encourage you to start paying attention to. But yeah, so we'll continue to want to see price go higher, It seems like that's going to be continuing to be the case. So now we take this, we go to the lower time frame, we see that this is a stop hunt. Okay, we're still in line with the buy side delivery. We're still aiming for the buy side up here. So now we have a breakdown, which swept the low here. What's below that? There's sell side liquidity. Okay, so the sell side liquidity here has people's stop losses who chase the buy. This is why we don't chase things that go one-sided right away. So they just got purged out, and now winning traders going to the buy side have now positioned themselves, engineering these people as losers because we have this upper target up here that's still being supported. Okay, if we look at, so yeah, this is an order block too, right? So if we could see price come down below, right, it shouldn't have to break through this. If it was to break through this level, that puts these lows in jeopardy. And then that would potentially be an early sign that we may not complete the buy side target. What is it? What was this? Not too sure what that was. I'm not too sure what those lines are. Maybe, let's see. I think I'll just remove those. I don't know what the hell those were. I don't know what I was referring to there. But yeah, so we have this gap in here. Let's see if it can hold this. Because it's 6:30, right? We already basically broke into it, into the AM session. If we go to the 1 minute chart, we got to find the very first presented fair value gap. And that's going to be very influential. If it's going to go higher, it's going to have to stay above this. If this move here that declined and started going higher again, if this is going to be supporting price targeting the buy side up here, it's going to have to stay above this first presented fair value gap. Okay. Anyone that's new, some of this stuff may be a little complex. You may be lost, but that's totally normal. You'll eventually catch on the more you stick around and watch ICT's concepts and the stuff that I tell you to pay attention to. So yeah, this was an inversion fair value gap. I guess that's what this was. It's a 5 minute inversion. So yeah, this overlap, right? The phenomenon here, fair value gap delivered. We're still looking to the buy side. So this here should in itself react as a balanced price range. So like I said, the first presented fair value gap should not get traded through. Our bias is still bullish. We're aiming for buy side, the previous week's high. So it should be able to continue to hold that and continue to push price up to the buy side up here if we are going to look to continue going up there, which I assume is going to continue to be the case. We got an order block in here. So once price gets above this, right, we'll see if it can continue to support this movement going higher. This is, like I said, inversion, but it's also overlapped with this one here. And it's also lined up with this first presented fair value gap of the open portion of the range here. So these levels need to be respected. Okay, we're right at the weekly open for the week. So the best buys come from below the weekly open in a weekly perspective. The best sells would come from above if we were bearish. We got the daily open price here, right? Notice how it consolidated, whipped lower, set the low of the day, and then now we blast it up, still supporting the buy side delivery. So again, all of this supports bullishness. And so we're going to continue, as we talked about on Sunday, we're going to continue to watch price move higher and try to frame out an opportunity in here going to the buy side. And you got to find your model in here. If it's not in here and you're just watching it and nothing makes sense, there's no reason for you to think, oh, I got to take a trade. You don't have to take a trade. And you should be listening, right, and trying to learn. Now, why I think it's going higher, because that's the most important factor, okay? Of course, it logs me out of my freaking broker, as always. Okay, so this order block is going to have to hold. Okay, so this delivery here, run on stops, shift in market structure above this swing high, balanced price range below us, first presented fair value gap is being respected. DXY looks like this was just a retracement to go lower, trying to trap people in. And yeah, so we should be able to continue to see this go higher. We should still be able to see this act as a balanced price range, which is, in this case, it's one of the variations of a BPR, which holds price. It should continue to support price going higher from inside this delivery here, if it is going to go higher. I can say that if we were to get down below this first presented fair value gap and these levels were to fail, and then we were to break down below this, that'd be the only time I'd be interested in trying to maybe, a big maybe, to frame a short instead of a buy. You know, if this all stays intact, there's literally zero reason to go against what the higher time frame is showing, especially given the fact that structurally the weekly range looks like it's been bullish, like we discussed on Sunday. Okay, so my confidence that it's going to get up here is, high 98, 99%. You just never know. You can never be 100%, but it's as close to 100% as we could possibly be. And you could see that perspective, which has been solidified even with price doing this, even through in the face of this. Obviously, it's still remaining to be true. So this order block, like I said, needs to hold. Okay, we got stop hunt down here. We got them stopping these people out. So people are now trapped in shorts, or they stopped out early buyers that maybe bought here or rushed it, and then price just swept down below that low. And so price is quickly not allowing for them to get back in with any meaningful retracement. Just this characteristic further supports that we're going to get up here. Okay, and that is my belief. So yeah. So we'll see if that continues. We're approaching the 650 macro. So AM Pacific Standard Time. Remember, I'm in California. So you got to figure out what the time difference is. Yeah, seems like everything's still working out. And we'll just assume that it is going to continue because nothing's changed. So why would we go against? Yasin said first presented for value gap on a yeah, 100%. Like we just mentioned, it's going to be important to watch this. DXY is turning a bit. Yeah, remember DXY is still bearish from that monthly chart, right? The weekly chart, it's respecting the wick in here. We're hanging around this order block too much, this bullish order block like we've been talking about. And this is a potential market maker sell model, which is why it's respecting up here and not dropping down. Hit a 15-minute bearish fair value gap. Yeah. I don't really like how they left these equal highs. But then again, it may leave it because we're still bearish. So yeah, from this low, this low up to the high of the fair value gap, it should not need to fill that in completely if it's going to continue to drop, which I believe it will. This upper portion of things should be able to be presented as a balanced price range because we already got buy side and sell side delivered there, so it should be able to continue to respect the fact that this has already been fulfilled. You know, we already kind of took stops up here too. And then this huge wick, at least from this time window, or this symbol using this broker, pretty much liquidated everybody to the buy side. There's really no need to try to get up there. So yeah, we'll continue to push for downside DXY until proven otherwise. And we'll see if these can continue. Looks like they will. You know, there's still some room to go. So we will see what that wants to do and watch and see if it's going to continue to hold inside these levels. Remember, we were going to wait until, holy crap, we were going to wait until the 650 macro comes in. As you can see, this is a beautiful testament as far as why we wait, why that rule is in place. We don't want to get caught in manipulation. It's CPI day. CPI, during CPI, like during the announcement, is not the only time craziness will take place. All right. Yeah, CPI is the only news event. So yeah, we'll see. You can see that there's a crack in correlation here. DXY going lower needs to see the indices go higher. That's just the way it is. Okay. And when it's cracked in correlation like that, it's automatically low probability. Doesn't mean there won't be opportunities, right? Doesn't mean that there won't be something to engage. It just means that you got to be cautious, because at any moment, correlation can be flipped back into motion, right? And then if DXY and the indices or foreign currencies like GU and EU are going lower together, at any moment, either in a macro or maybe a PD array is met that sends price higher, maybe a liquidity pool would get swept and then send price higher while DXY continues to go lower. You know, in that case, things may kick back in alignment. That's what presents us with the low probability element, and it will require you to drop your risk. Okay, so again, no opportunities have been talked about unless you would have taken this and took 20 to 30 points, which is all we target, especially during this this type of day, this type of week. For those that don't know, all we're aiming for is 20 to 30 points every single day, and if we get offered more, that's great. But 20 to 30 points is all you need to target. You see these people trying to get 50 to 1R and all this other nonsense. Put that out of your mind completely, because you don't need to have that to be profitable. You can have a negative RR, like 20 point stop with a 10-point reward, right? Or 30-point stop with a 20-point reward, and you could still be profitable if your strike rate is high. So that kind of shatters the need to have high risk to reward. It's obviously good to have high risk to reward. It helps you, be profitable long term. Even in the face of losses, okay, because it's going to happen anyway. But it's not required. Especially looking at price the way we do. We have a high 80% strike rate, like high 90% accuracy rate with where price is going to go. So, that high accuracy doesn't demand high risk to reward to be profitable. All right. So take that out of your mind completely. 20 to 30 points is all you need. So 20 point stop, that's calculated by looking at this, right? This is the points right here on the left side. This is the ticks, right? The ticks are different inside of indices. I don't think currencies have this difference or like double component ticks and points. I don't think they have that when you're talking about pips. They may. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But this is just a little different, okay? But this is all you look at here. You look at the point element, and this would basically tell you how many points you have. And so 30 points is 120 ticks, okay? Which is over here, right? So 120, and you'd have 30 here. And 20 is obviously a little bit different as well. But yeah, you could see that this BPR here that should have held is now turning into an inversion. We do see that there's a turnaround. Isn't it ironic that this is taking place going inside the macro? Okay, so we're going to see, right? If we were going to go higher, we would have preferred to see this hold. So now we're going to have to consider possibly being flexible. But we're going to let price still print a little bit. You know, we're not in a rush. We're not missing anything. You could have made the argument if you were independently thinking this was potentially going to drop for whatever reason. I don't know what would have compelled you to think that, but if you did have an opinion that this displacement here was going to cause a drop, this here is the 2022 YouTube model. Okay, you got the run-on stops here, shift in market structure that left the fair value gap, and then a fair value gap here, balanced price range, turned to an inversion, and then now we've broken down below this first presented fair value gap and the swing low here. Okay, so this is putting these lows in jeopardy. We got to still see what DXY is going to do, but again, we are in no rush. You know, if you think about buys and sells, anyone that was trying to do either thing, they're both basically being manipulated and punished right now. So we're not going to be part of the shenanigans, and we will continue to wait and allow price to print. Okay, those of you that are familiar with the regular trading hours gap, which is the close of the previous day to the open of the current day, that little gap in price, which you find here by clicking regular trading hours, that gap in here has obviously been targeted now. All right, so with that being said, we got to observe how price is going to behave within this. We have the first 30 minutes, little range, right? The opening range from the first 30 minutes, the high and low. If we're going to go higher, in order for it to support that, we got to be above the first presented fair value gap, the regular trading hours gap, which I just mentioned, and then we want to be above the first 30 minutes of the overnight range, which starts at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 12 midnight Eastern Time. Okay, this is not indicating that buys are of interest at the moment. So again, this is putting these lows in jeopardy right now. These lows, ironically, are London's low. This run up above these highs here, I think this was previous day's high. So yeah, we took out previous day's high here. And that has triggered in a rejection, which obviously doesn't fully support the fact that we're going to blow out the previous week's high. That was my assumption to start the week, that we were going to blow out the previous week's high, or the all-time highs, with CPI. And that just it hasn't happened yet. It may still happen, but we're going to have to wait and see. Pretty strong displacement back to the buy side in order to try to consider buys again. Something we can also consider here, which again puts this in jeopardy, is the fact that this fair value gap here has now turned to an inversion, and now we've traded both buys and sells through it. So depending on how this reacts is going to determine whether this is going to be taken out or not. Okay, so previous day's high, which is part of our liquidity mapping, and a failure to breach the previous week's high has resulted in this displacement, creating another overlapping fair value gap event, which may end up being used to then target London's low. If London's low is taken, this is seek and destroy, which is basically buy side and sell side being taken, which just amplifies the risk that's involved in CPI days, which I made very clear this morning, like what the risk profile is and what you got to be paying attention to and how you need to operate. You know, if you did take a trade in here and you took a loss, which kind of goes against what we've been talking about this morning, but if it did take place because you were trying to be independent thinkers, there's nothing to be upset about. You know, it's just a testament to the risk. And hopefully you had half risk, which obviously is what I talk about. But if you didn't have that, take place, again, this is what I'm considering. If it stays below the mid portion of this fair value gap in here, and maybe DXY can get above this high, then again, we may see this set up to dig pretty deep. I can say that if we get back above this, that may get us back in line. If we take this high, it's going to probably take out previous week's high. That's the only time I will start to consider price going back into the buy side delivery. Otherwise, there's nothing for me to do right now. There's nothing for you to do right now if you're going to follow the way that we operate and the things that we look at. Let me look at the chat real quick. Again, guys, I just want to remind you, if you get value from what we do, don't forget to like the video. It helps the channel out tremendously. It gets me in front of people that are just like you, that need to hear the things that we talk about, because it's heartbreaking that people get hurt so badly in this industry at such a high volume, when this industry offers so much opportunity if you just have the right guidance. So you guys liking the video and subscribing to the channel, and asking questions and leaving comments, engaging with what we do live, it pushes the content out further, and you help me accomplish the mission of helping more people. So you're technically helping other people by doing these things and supporting the channel, because you guys know, you guys have been here for a while. That's my main priority, is to give you guys a reality and help you get better as traders, and then get you to the point of clarity, so then you can become profitable in your own or of your own actions. I'm just kind of like a segue that gets you to see things clearly, and then you can learn to fly on your own. Okay, that's the main goal. It's not for me to build this huge profile and be an egomaniac. Okay, I mean, if it just stays this big and we just end up helping the subscribers that I do have, and that's all I do as a mentor in trading, I think that's a good accomplishment. Even if it's 100 people, it's still doing what I set out to achieve when I decided to go public with what I do. Okay, so yeah, I appreciate you guys ahead of time. So yeah, again, I'm watching this swing high up here. We're keeping in mind these levels. There's nothing to engage right now. Think about all the people that just got pulled in. We see DXY is still supporting the downside. So again, DXY is bearish. Indices should be bullish. That is just the way it is. That's how the market runs. Everything's connected, but sometimes they're opposed to one another. And when that relationship's intact, that is telling you that things are going to be smooth, and it can build trust and clarity. Because again, that's also one of the main goals that we have here on this channel, is to give you clarity and help you figure out how to gain clarity. So we're watching this fair value gap. I can say that if we lose this low, we will for surely look to take out London's low. It's not for certain right now, especially with DXY not fully committing to dropping. This is it's becoming a little more convincing, but we just came into the macro. So this was a contrarian idea to some of the thoughts that we were talking about earlier. But because we have a system to switch our opinion, and a system that helps us solidify staying on one side of the market, we have to wait for that system to be invalidated, and then we have to start seeing things that validate the flexibility, so then we can not flip-flop and not take buys and sells because we're confused. We got to sometimes let price print a little bit, especially on days like this, on weeks that have CPI, FOMC, NFP. You got to have more patience than normal, but you should have heavy patience anyways. There's a lot of waiting, and that's something that a lot of traders can't deal with. But it is what it is. So yeah, clearly this inversion has been respected. We got these up candles here. If we move up in time frame, we could start to get a picture as far as what this is, right? Is it an order block? Seems like it is. Notice the wick in here. So that being respected is starting to continue to support that the lows may continue to be targeted. Okay, so from that lower time frame, moving up in time frame to get more context, again, we have this large overlapping fair value gap now. It's about to break out of it. And then now we got this rejection in here, aside from what we just talked about earlier. This balanced price range on the lower time frame is also a larger one up here. Once it broke below this, it's obviously been continuing to respect this down wick. That's also a bearish order block, okay? And it's also, again, turning things to inversion. So you can start to see that if you were bullish, like we were, right, we assumed that it was going to use CPI to try to blow out these highs here, because higher time frame levels get met and traded to off of the heels of news events, right? But because that hasn't happened, we got this failure swing. There's SMT also between the Dow and the Nasdaq and S&P. And the fact that we're respecting these levels, again, my attention is now down to London's low. All right, and again, there was, if you maybe came to that determination sooner, right? Maybe you wanted to be a little more aggressive. I don't encourage you to do that, because obviously we have our process and we got to be patient. But if you did want to act like a cowboy, again, I validated this as the YouTube model to sell. For those of you that may be contrarian, I have some of you guys in the community that are contrarian. Everything that I talk about, you try to find the retracement to. Doesn't work out all the time, but some of you guys are really good at it. But if that's your perspective, if that's something that makes sense to you, don't let me take you away from that opinion, because that was correct. Okay, but for me, right, I would have had to wait like I've been waiting. I got to wait for this to get through this. Now that we are below this, if DXY can go higher, which is the one thing keeping me away from engaging a short right now, if it was to go higher, then I would be committed more. But this London low obviously is becoming the target. This delivery here, although it's a bit sloppy, has now created a market maker sell model. This run higher here, if we go to the 5-second chart, created a market maker sell model. Okay, the run higher, kind of a sloppy, lackluster behavior or creation of the market maker sell model. But it's also just an order block, right? So if that confuses you, you don't got to think about it that way in terms of market maker model. You will eventually when it gets more comfortable. But yeah, so this low is going to be targeted. Remember, I just said that once we get below this, it's most likely going to target the low. Once it closed below this low here that we looked at on this 1 minute chart, this created an order block. Okay, so this low to that high, because it's an order block, the middle portion of that range should continue to hold. And of course, we have this to stack on top of it too, which is the inversion. We're also below the regular trading hours gap. The low is here. This right here, this little red line or box, is the new day opening gap. The new day opening gap is from the close yesterday to the open that happens from 1:30 to, I think, 3 o'clock. It's just somewhere in there, right? PM Pacific Standard Time. There's a little gap that forms. You want to take the timing and adjust it to your time so you can get an accurate understanding of what the time is, depending on your time zone. But that little gap is there, and we see that it's came right to it. Okay, so we'll see what happens. In order for us to be bullish again and get away from shorts, which shorts are now the overall opinion, because it's basically came through these levels that helped confirm that the London low is going to be targeted. The only way that we would go back to being bullish again overall and getting back in line with the higher time frame bullish narrative, we would have to see price get above this high up here. Otherwise, it'll continue to go lower. Let me see, is Friday's low still? Yeah, we still have Friday's low that's available. We have these layered sell side liquidity pools. Okay, so this looks like it may be getting targeted here. Okay, so this could end up being what price wants to reach in for. If, of course, it smashes the London low, that's not going to be unreasonable. Again, this is all low probability because the crack in correlation, it's overall not following the correlation that it's supposed to follow. So when there's a crack in that correlation, a crack in that relationship, it's automatically low probability. Obviously, there's ways to frame something out, okay? But, you want to be extra cautious, extra demanding on days like this, which is what I do, right? What I've been showing today. I'd prefer not to take a trade if my rules and things don't align. It's just the way it is. Sometimes things won't align for me within the things that I'm sharing. But like I said earlier, maybe one of you guys supported something like this taking place. Maybe you waited. Once it got below here, that was enough for you to trust that it was going to target London's low. If that was the case, 20 to 30 points was offered there. 20 to 30 points was offered there. I don't really see much of an argument to have been made to take this high to go lower. I don't trade turtle soup. Also, that's what that's called, when it peaks above a high and then reverses aggressively. The only thing that supports this was the SMT that the Dow had. See, like I said, this here, getting below this, it should be able to hold and get price down below London low. And then if it blows out London's low and DXY hopefully turns around, it may not. It may just stay cracked the correlation. But if it was to turn around and we break down through London's low, that puts this extreme low from the last 24 hours in jeopardy. And I mean, that just looks pretty obvious. There's stops below these lows. People are resting below those lows, right? They got many orders. Some orders are below there to see when price breaks through it, to pull them in, right, to shorts, because maybe that's when people think support's going to turn to resistance, right? They may be able to get that if we do target the low down here. But again, this is all still counter trend. It still has a possibility, given the weekly and daily chart is still bullish. It still has a chance to see this as manipulation, especially because it's CPI day today. And then maybe get us up above here and then target up to the buy side. All right, especially with DXY still declining. Like I said, at any moment when there's a crack in correlation, at any moment they could flip the switch and then price can go right back in line with what it was already doing, because that's just the way it is. All right. So yeah, we're now in the 7 o'clock hour, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's the silver bullet window. You generally want to find some type of fair value gap that's in line with where price is going. And a lot of times that can be a pretty solid deciding factor. If in fact, like this London low is taken out, this should be able to hold here with this order block. And if it delivers, that's the silver bullet window opportunity. Okay, sometimes it'll take a while. It has the whole entire hour to do something like that, which is why it's very important to have this background information as far as like overall what price is doing, what the relationships are looking like. Is it correlating? Is it cracked in correlation? Is it structurally making sense that price is going to target something like this, or whatever direction you're trying to take the silver bullet in? You could literally trade this 1 hour window, right? Or from the open on AM session, the last 10 minutes of the previous hour up until 7:10 of this hour as your first window of opportunity within this whole hour, and then take the last 10 minutes and first 10 minutes of the hour that comes next as your 3 separate windows of opportunity. And you could build a career off of that only. And you could just not really care about PM session. You could not care about London. You could disregard pretty much every other window of time, every other situation in terms of engagement. And you could live right here. This is where we live every day. We find opportunities within this hour. So that's how tight you can make your trading. And you don't have to spend 20 hours a day trading every session to be successful. You don't want to trade every hour of every day, every session, because you're trading to get freedom, right? That's not freedom. That's putting yourself in a prison and glued ball and chain to the chart, to your computer. And that's not a life you want to live. You'd rather go get a job if that's what you're trying to do. At least that's my opinion. So just keep in mind you don't have to do too much. But yeah, we see how price is turning against this situation now. Right? So if this was going to hold, it would have had to stay below this. This is now putting in jeopardy the opinion that this is going to hold. This is all looking like it was manipulation. And it looks like, again, like I said, they could flip the switch. Right? DXY is dropping with the indices dropping. At any moment, they could flip it on and then boom, something like this takes place. This is beautifully describing or visually showing you what I just mentioned, the risk of taking executions that have crack and correlation effects taking place. So I'd prefer to see us take this and then see if it can hold this. This up delivery here, the down movement, this will create a bullish order block. And it'll also create what is called a breaker. Okay, so the last up candle here, if price was to get above this, I would be looking for this to potentially be an opportunity to then try to target buy side again. As long as DXY is falling, if we do leave these lows, let's go look and see what's happening between the indices. Yeah, look at the Dow. The Dow's now blown up after it created that failure swing at the highs. You see the, is there an SMT there? Not really. So yeah, watch this fair value gap in here. Again, there's nothing I want to participate in unless I was to take this short from earlier. So we're going to be in a mode of continuing to wait. I want to see if this can mature and get us up above this high. So we got this high up here, right? If we get another swing high to form and we continue to hold inside this level and then it displaces back above that, basically getting above this little gray box here, which again is a breaker and possibly the upper portion of a bullish order block, that would be enough for me to classify this as a type 2 dealing range, reversal pattern, which we've been talking about a lot lately. And then that would then trigger me to then try to still target the previous week's high. For now, it's a bit more risky to take either direction. So because that's the case, and there's other things that I would like to wait for to put real money behind, because I don't just throw money at anything just because I want to take a trade. We'll have to just continue to wait. So yeah, we got this here. Let me actually pull this in a little bit. Mind you, this is a potential breaker. It's not a breaker right now. It's only going to be a breaker if it gets above this. And then, of course, if that happens, that's going to make me really interested in targeting the buy side. If it fails to do this, and it stays below this fair value gap in here, let me actually put a box there. Okay, if it was to get down below this and not hold this, that may send us down to London's low. Right, I'd prefer to see us try to get above here, especially if DXY is going to fall. The scenario that I would prefer is to see price get above this. We also have a fair value gap in here that may also turn to an inversion. Right, so we're watching this. Right, let's see, is this going to hold here and get us up above this high, which would trigger in my interest to try to target a buy, or that's what I prefer to see. Right, but we're going to remain flexible because we still got these London lows and relative equal lows that could very easily be targeted if DXY was to go higher. If DXY goes lower, though, and we continue and break this high up here, which is what I would prefer to see given what we've seen so far, I will be confident in taking a buy here above this high. If it doesn't do any of this, right, and just stays, hanging around in here, I'm not interested in trying to push a sell here, and I'm for surely not interested in trying to get ahead of a buy. I want to see things take place. It's CPI, okay, NFP week, FOMC week, federal fund rate announcement weeks. Those are days and weeks that you got to relax. Not every single day and not every single session demands you or even gives you the opportunity to take an opportunity quickly. Sometimes you got to wait. You got to let price speak to you. Okay, so, and right now, it's a bit indecisive. There's an argument to be made for the higher time frame narrative to continue going higher, right? Which would be set up by this high getting broken, right? At least that's my assumption. And then, of course, there's an argument to make for the London low, too, because at the same time, when we're going sideways like this, you have no choice but to be flexible, unless, you could just assume and either get something wrong or potentially get lucky, and have it go in your direction. When it's sideways, you never know what's going to happen, especially after the heels of CPI. We do have our foundational understanding that the fact that the higher time frame is still bullish, that's why I'm favoring when this gets above here, I'll look to try to push a buy. But I'm keeping the door open for a possible flexible entry or scenario to try to then target sell side, and a very specific sell side target, which is London's low, which is something we use daily. Okay, so we've kind of cornered price in here, and it's going to really depend on what it does with DXY. The Kraken correlation again puts things in low probability perspective, so that's why we got to wait. And then of course we're off the heels of CPI. This is just the way it is. People don't like to hear it. They have some like fantasy opinion that every single moment in price should be an opportunity, or you should have the expectation that every moment should be guaranteed 100%, and that's just not reality. You got to be able to have a process that allows you to be flexible, but then also be rooted in something like I just mentioned, right? The higher time frame narrative is still bullish. So again, when it gets above this, we're going to see how price wants to treat that. And then if price gets above this, but then still ends up tanking, right? If you take this high to that low, the line in the sand for validation will be the middle portion of this range here, from this high down to the low. So this here would turn off interest to buy within this opportunity here. So because we got above this high, I think that we have a pretty good chance to try to get up above these highs, and this will potentially be the setup that gets us up to the previous week's high. So I'm going to be leaning on that. Looks like that has pretty, nicely delivered so far. Narrative is still bullish. Higher time frame, weekly, daily, monthly chart confirms that, and this was all just a retracement, at least for now. Okay, so now we're looking like we're going to get up above the first presented fair value gap. If we get above that, this here to me looks like a market maker buy model. Accumulation or consolidation, accumulation, reaccumulation. You drag that over, you see that distribution took place after the smart money reversal here. Basically just filled in the whole regular trading hours gap. That's what this yellow box is. So if price gets up above this first presented fair value gap, I would expect speed and distance to get us up to the previous week's high. And all of this will have just been a manipulation move to pull people in. Of course, it's doing what I assumed would happen if it got above this high, right? Pretty much like I painted it out and assumed it was going to do. But this is a red flag for me here. This Kraken correlation could lead to price staying sideways. It could lead to price taking these highs and then just continuing to drop. Because remember, at any moment, they could flip the switch when correlation is out of whack, right? If it's out of alignment, there could be a serious problem taking place at any moment. You can be proven incorrect, right? Overall, it's still bearish in the DXY. This run higher doesn't make me assume that that's completely done, because higher time frame wise, we don't flip-flop. Higher time frame direction doesn't change day to day. Bias within that higher time frame, weekly, monthly direction, sometimes can change because it could be a retracement, right? Like this may end up being. It could consolidate while it's trying to set up that larger perspective run, right? So day to day, your bias can change. Narrative is what the higher time frames overall objective is, right? Like what is it reaching for on that weekly, monthly chart? That's where you get your narrative. Bias sometimes can change though because of retracements and consolidation, and I teach counter trend trading. I teach frameworks for that, how to be that type of trader. I have some students that are that type of trader. So I've had to make sure I made a process for that. And that just opens up even further opportunities. Even if you're not a counter trend trader, it opens up more opportunities, and it also opens up your ability to be flexible, but then also understand what price is doing while still holding on to the higher time frame narrative, so you're not fully flip-flopping back and forth, just losing sight of everything. Okay, so remember, this up candle here needs to hold price. You see this wick here overlapping this fair value gap? It should not have any reason, unless it's going to totally turn around, should have no reason to try to break through this entire thing. All right, if it does, I'm not interested in anything. And if an execution's taken, stop would be very tight. It'd be down in this area. So yeah, let's see what happens. So yeah, we got the Dow still running higher. I mean, this just looks like a shit show. Looks like the S&P just came down to this fair value gap. The Nasdaq's definitely hanging around in time distortion. But, you know, like I said, we're going to watch this and see what happens. So if we go to the 30-second chart, we see this fair value gap. Let's see if it can hold within that. Remember, it needs to stay above these blue lines in here if it's going to continue to support this as a bullish breaker, because this high to that low should be able to act as a rolling balanced price range, and we should still be able to continue, especially if this is going to be a market maker buy model. It should be very quick. Can you see that delivery there? We'll see if that's going to hold up. Remember, all your target would be is 20 to 30 points. Right? If you would have tried to engage this, right? 20 points has already been secure. 30 points is almost going to be secure. But 20 points was already there. So that could be pretty much all you wanted to do. I don't think that that will be all it's going to do. I could be wrong. It could stay in this consolidation. Right? Yeah, we'll see what happens. Now it's above this high, so this high to that low should act in a very similar fashion. It should be able to stay above that as a BPR. And as long as DXY continues to drop, I think this will be a pretty solid market maker buy framework to then try to target previous week's high, which was the initial target. Notice how I said when it breaks above this high, creating the bullish breaker, it will probably continue to push, and we had to wait for that to take place. And thankfully we did. And guess what? An opportunity was just given to you for 30 points. Beautifully secured. Exactly what I painted played out. The patience I just showed hopefully leaves a mark on you. And you can continue to, grow into that. It's very, very important. So yeah, now, since we're getting up into this level, we really shouldn't come back down to this low. We shouldn't see this come or get taken out in any way. That would not be ideal. So if execution was taken in here, stop would have been below the breaker range in here, the candle. And this delivery, first of all, has obviously delivered much more than 30 points. I think like 40 points at this point. And so now the stop would reasonably be able to be below this low. It should be able to act as a BPR, similar to how this was a BPR. Notice how we just framed out why this fair value gap should not get traded fully into. Because it was left open, that's a beautiful sign. That's supportive of what this is doing here. You know, because it's CPI day, obviously, still a risk of it just consolidating, trying to upset everybody, because there's no demand that it has to do one thing or another. You know, it doesn't have to do anything, okay? It could just stay stuck because CPI is what it is. You know, but that's why 20 to 30 points is so valuable, especially in days like this, because that could be the deciding factor behind whether you're going to be able to be profitable on that day or not. All right, so again, it's going to need to stay above this high to that low. The center portion should not be traded into. Okay. So got this inversion here. DXY is speeding up to the downside, so let's see what happens here. Again, this is my rolling balanced price range theory. Right? As price is printing, it's giving you building blocks. That's continuing to hold price and tell you the story that it's holding up, and there's no reason to worry about it. You know? And this already ran 30 points, so you could have taken a partial. Or just completely closed out entirely and just had that as a profitable run. Yeah, so that opportunity was pretty nice. Let's see if we could fulfill the potential market maker buy model in here. DXY is still supportive of the idea. The Dow is still pushing higher. S&P is still pushing higher. Looks like the Nasdaq is potentially going to be the slow mover of the three. If that's the case, that's unfortunate. But regardless, the move that was just given was the best move given the context of what we've been talking about. So it offered the 20 to 30 points. So yeah, hopefully if you did engage, you were able to smack that and get out. Because that's the whole objective of a day like this. It may run all the way up there, but again, do you really need that? 20 to 30 points can be $300+. It could be $200, depending on the lot size if you're trading micros. It could be $100, right? Whatever the case may be, it's still something worthwhile. You shouldn't be aiming for thousands of dollars on days like this. You know, when you have a big enough account, sure, you know, that may be a small amount. But your targeting needs to be very limited because nothing is telling us that it has to go to these highs. I would like for it to go up there, right? Does it have to get up there for us to be profitable? No, right? It doesn't. You know, 20 to 30 points is plenty. That pays the bills, that gets you out of a job, that gives you freedom. You know, even if you're trading micros. Obviously, you probably need more than one micro, right? But, you know, again, you got to manage your expectations. So yeah, let's see if this is going to hold up here within this BPR. Remember, this is going to be a possible accumulation. It should be able to quickly try to purge the highs up here. If DXY is going to continue to drop, and this is in fact going to be a market maker buy model, like I said, we should get some fairly quick delivery here. I like how it's holding in this. That's a nice sign for us to continue to trust that this is going to continue. DXY is also declining. We see all three of the indices are still somewhat moving. They're kind of, you know, being a little bit slow. But, you know, it's kind of just to be expected. We're in high resistance environment right now. So expect it. But yeah, if it's going to work out and target the highs, this should be a point in time where price moves fairly quickly. I would have really liked to see this inside of a macro. It's not, obviously. So, you know, that runs the risk of price holding and not really trying to do much until the macro comes in 30 minutes or 20 minutes. You know, this is clearly time distortion for now, basically holding price. Yeah, we've got the accumulation there. So yeah, this is going to be a two-stage distribution, and the time that the move that finishes off this and completes this market maker buy model, we should not see price hang around here. We should not see this broken. Like I said, that's our line in the sand, the middle portion of this. Okay. So yeah, we'll see if it can give it to us. That's what I'd prefer to see, though. I would really enjoy seeing it move beyond the highs a little bit further. Even if it's just like one candle and then it chooses to come back into the range. That would obviously not be what we want to see. We want to see this move quickly if this is going to be a market maker buy model, which so far you could see that all the elements are there. Consolidation, accumulation, reaccumulation, smart money reversal, right? what happened on the left side happened on the right side. So accumulation and then first stage distribution right here. And then now we're inside the potential second stage distribution, which is the first stage accumulation over here on the sell side of the curve. So it should be able to hold up in here. If this fails and it breaks down below this, again, that puts in jeopardy London's low. Yeah, like I said, this was the best opportunity from this morning using what we talk about and, you know, putting our observations to the chart with something that's reliable. Yeah, so you could see if this is a failure to complete the top up here, which is a market maker buy model. If it was to fail that, we have 1 BPR, 2 BPRs. So if it was to break through that, are you really going to try to consider buys again? Or still, you're going to really force your will in the market when it's clearly telling you something if these areas fail? You know, this will allow you to be flexible, right? The breaker would then get violated. These balanced price ranges would be violated. And then in that case, you could then reliably look to short and target London low. But again, like I said at the beginning, we favoring one side, which was bullishness, trying to figure out an idea that supports that. And obviously that patience paid off, right? It allowed us to find an opportunity. Let's see if it can, you know, give a little bit more. It's already done more than enough, right, for you to get your 20 to 30 points. So yeah, let's see what happens. So yeah, nothing's changed. You know, same opinion, same framework. We got our areas. It looks a little busy in here. Yeah, I know. But it's important for me to label these things so you could see what's going on. Like, what am I thinking? What am I watching? What am I looking at? Okay, and this is exactly what we're looking at. Nothing has shown that we need to change our opinion yet, except the fact that it's kind of slowed down. And it's not delivering quickly from this area, which is what I'd prefer. The longer it takes to deliver from there, the less likely it is that this is going to be a dynamic move. Doesn't mean that it won't happen. It's just it becomes less likely, you know, and just more important to have taken the 30, or the 20 or 30 points I was offered, rather than trying to push it and hold for more than is necessary. All right, so yeah, we'll see. Everything is still holding. It's just taking a while. So we will see what happens. Yeah, let me go check the chat. You guys have any questions about anything that we've talked about? DXY is now kind of breaking down. Yeah, you got those relative equal highs here on the S&P. I mean, that looks pretty juicy if you ask me. Yeah, let me know in the chat if you have any questions. Is there anything that we talked about today that maybe was like beneficial, maybe amplified something? Did you take a trade? Did you lose? Did you take a trade and win? I'd like to hear some of your guys' thoughts from so far this morning. Yeah, DXY is definitely opening up, and we're inside of a macro, or not inside of a macro, like we're outside of the macro. So we are encountering time distortion. So yeah, this right here is what we're watching. Okay, so this should be able to behave as real support. Okay, and we should be able to also stay above this as well, which we have been, at least up until this point. So it should not have any real reason to try to come down and take this low, unless of course it's going to upset this entire delivery, fail to deliver to the buy side up here, and then look to target London low, right? So very clear, I hope, as far as what it is that we're looking at. Again, we got that first presented fair value gap. It's definitely dancing around. If it displaces outside of it, that'll be another level of support that should be able to hold and pretty dynamically send price higher. And then of course we've got these supportive levels down here that should continue to hold price. All of this is obviously within this larger view. Okay, we see that we're above this order block here on the weekly. We see this pretty large run in here. Go to the 15-minute. Whoops. Go to the 15-minute. Keep our eyes on some of this larger perspective. Right, we got this 15-minute. Fair value gap. And then we also, inside of that, we have the 15-minute order block in here too. So again, this is going to have to hold as well, right, above the mid portion of this. We do have these equal lows down here, which are a bit suspect. We're still in a range. So again, if it breaks the levels I just mentioned, again, that's going to cause a problem for buys. Okay, otherwise, if this stuff holds, we have really zero reason to be concerned. We have a beautiful narrative that's still in play, still going higher, and we have our invalidation levels. So with that being said, there's no reason to flip-flop. There's no reason to worry about it, right? And again, if you're following my instruction, 20 to 30 points was already offered. So you should have already moved to the sideline with your 20 to 30 points. And if you're still holding, if you were in an execution, just remember that if it breaks down below here, because it's taken so long, it's becoming a little less likely that this is going to be dynamic. It may make you work for the buy side, or it may turn around entirely. So just keep in mind, that's the risk that's on the table right now. Yeah, that right there was enough for me. All right. Just that one last run above. So from this low down here, pull that up real quick. Okay, so from the low to the high up there, get this calculation in here. All right, so from pretty much the upper portion of that, just slightly above this high, presented 50 points. So we were able to secure 50. It offered 20 and 30, and everything was given in the moment, ahead of time. I showcased the patience. I showed why you don't need to worry about waiting. You're not missing anything just because you miss this. There's always going to be something to make sense of, especially because we are very high level traders. The things that you're learning is from someone that understands this industry. Okay, this is my life, like literally. Like like, there's nothing else in terms of career-wise that I've ever been passionate about. I played sports in high school. When that didn't work, I had nothing to focus on, and until I found trading. And once I found trading, I put that same focus that I had when I was playing football in sports into this. And now, for the last 6 years, this has been my life. And every single day, we're able to find something that's logical. We're able to, like, I can't remember a day that I had a negative day. I remember some days from last week or the last 3 weeks that there were days that we didn't take a trade. But I haven't given one trade in like 3 straight months that has resulted in a negative outcome. That's a big statement for someone to say, And if I was worried about someone coming out here and say, oh, he's lying, which there's plenty of people that could come out and say that if I was lying, I wouldn't be saying this stuff, And most of the people that try to think this way or talk this way have 0 things to back it up. I literally have proof every single day and recorded videos from literally the entire year and recorded videos since all the way back in 2022 in my private group. So there's so much evidence. Like, I could be sued, okay, and go to court and prove it that what I'm saying is not lying, okay? Because I have all my videos recorded. I have everything saved. Everything's documented. Not only personal, but now publicly this year. And so why am I saying this? Because I know that it's so difficult for people to trust people on social media. And the things that I have been teaching, the results that I've seen students like Tony in the chat have, my student Harley, how quickly my little brother's learning. I'm Reckless in the chat, for those that don't know. And just everybody else that I have seen over the last 3.5 years that I've been showing this publicly. I mean, it's undeniable, and I want to get people to listen in as long as you're serious about trading, because I know it'll help you. The success rate is pretty insane, at least the ability to gain clarity as far as what you need to look for, and just the technicals and how to think, how to operate as a trader. That stuff is like guaranteed. And the whole profitability aspect depends on you. Like, you could learn everything that I talk about. You could do all this stuff and, take all the advice and learn all the different things that we do to be profitable. And you could still lose and not be successful because of internal things. Maybe your discipline is not right. Maybe you don't know how to just listen to or focus on one model, right? Maybe you just refuse to listen to good advice because you think you have all the answers, but you're still seeking help while still having that mindset. That'll screw you over. So anyone you learn from, even if they're the most profitable traders on the planet, you'll still lose. You'll still fail. And most of the time the default is, let's go blame the mentor, even though it's them that don't want to follow instructions, that want to overtrade and over leverage, that want to force trades, that want to go full max leverage during CPI and any of the other news events. Maybe they're trying to do 50 models when all you need is one to start, and then gradually learn about the other ones. Maybe something in your personal life is messing with you, and you want to just change the reality you're living in. So you go into the market trying to feel good, right? And maybe you don't know how to get away from that. Maybe you're so focused on the next trade rather than looking at things from a set of trade mentality. Looking at your skill set overall, the knowledge and where you've come from, rather than looking at each day-to-day engagement. And maybe you make every single loss like a life and death scenario. So there's many variables that either allow a trader to be successful, but then also at the same time make it impossible for someone to be successful, no matter who you learn from. So it's very important that you follow instructions, and the things that I mentioned, it's always with these things in mind, right? All these things that I teach, the way that I talk about things. Lately, obviously, I've been kind of trying to, push the issue, saying like, hey, like, if you're here, you're in a place where someone is showing that they know how to trade. And then, of course, there's other people that are learning as well and becoming successful off what we do here. I think it's very important that even you guys, if you come out and start being successful, maybe you take some of the stuff that I've taught you, some of the stuff that you learn from ICT, and you go out and do some spectacular stuff for yourself. I encourage you to be public. Okay, if obviously not everyone's going to be able to do it because maybe they're worried about opinions, and eventually, even if you are a bit shy or whatever, you'll break out of it. But you have to trust yourself. You have to prove personally first that you know what you're doing, and then slowly ease into things like trading live in front of an audience. But I encourage you though to consider it, because you guys all know, every single one of us know, including anyone that watches the replay of this video. Everybody knows that most of these people don't know what the fuck they're doing. Okay? There's so many liars. There's so many scammers and like shitty people on social media, especially in this industry. But it's a shame that those same people will stop a person that finds trading and would eventually be successful, but they have such a bad taste in their mouth, or they hurt themselves so badly because they took bad advice. So I feel like it's a noble thing and something you should think about in terms of going public, obviously with the intention of helping. You can make a business around it and whatever, if that's something you chose to do and you have a perspective worth listening to, because you'll learn a model from me, you'll learn a couple of them, you'll learn some stuff from ICT, and luckily these concepts allow you to build your own system. It's got it's like you got the components from somewhere, right? But you're the one that put the components together in your way, right? That's what creates a lane for you to build your own system, okay? And it's your system. That's why ICT says when you are successful, he doesn't deserve all the credit. You need to give yourself the credit, because you're the one putting your system together with all these different pieces and components, and you're taking the risk. You're managing yourself. You're improving yourself. The way in which you do that is unique. Even if I'm trading a breaker and you're trading a breaker, or I trade the market maker models and you trade the market maker models, we will still find different opportunities, right? Different points in price will be more comfortable for you, and it'll be different for me. Or sometimes it will align with both of us, right? But most of the time it will be different. I'll take an entry here, you'll take maybe I'll take a buy, you'll take a sell in the same price action. But we have the same perspective, right? That's a testament to how unique this is. At least these concepts, right? Because it's unlike any other concepts. Most concepts are trying to shove you into a mold. Here, use this setting on this MACD, or this or that, and it's all just from books that don't work. So everyone's trying to do the same crap. But we have something totally different. You can use the same stuff, yet have different opportunities, right? So it becomes unique. You may like to day trade. Someone else may like to swing trade. That's a different system. That's a different mindset. That is a unique perspective, which has more value than you can ever imagine, and more value than you probably realize in the moment. Okay? And so there's no problem with someone coming out and trying to build a business around that, or come out, go on YouTube, try to build a name for yourself on YouTube with the intention to help somebody by sharing your perspective. This is the world that you are now a part of, okay, when it comes to ICT concepts. The other ways of trading doesn't necessarily open that opportunity. First of all, because most of your students are going to fail, because those retail logic, perspectives don't even work, and we weaponize it against them. We completely turn everything upside down. Like Elena was talking about earlier, it is pretty good to understand the retail perspective, so then you can go ahead and use it against them once you become well versed in what it is that we do here as ICT traders. But again, I want to reiterate and really amplify that the industry needs more people that know what they're doing, that are willing to help. Good people that truly want to help. That's why I started doing this. That's why I have a private group. A lot of people will not appreciate it. especially if you come out and you're doing something for free. Maybe that pushes you into creating a private community where you work one-on-one with people, which is the thing that I offer in terms of a paid portion of what it is that I do. I encourage you guys to think about these things. This is an opportunity, right? These are opportunities aside from you just trading. You have to be successful trading first. Okay, if you just think that that's going to be the quick way of making money, let's go start a mentorship and do blah, 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 and just regurgitate what everybody else says without being able to prove it, there's enough of those people on social media. We don't need more of them. They're a problem, okay, because most of the students fail, unlike most of my students, which are succeeding, and students that, try to focus on ICT concepts themselves, like some of the more elite charter students, his Hall of Fame, I guess you could say, right? But I want to plant these seeds in your head, okay? The industry needs more people that know what they're doing, that sincerely want to help, because the view of the financial industry, the view of trading in itself, because of stupid ass people like IML, or companies like IML used to be, the network marketing companies that try to use this amazing world of trading as a bait, so they can hook you into some multi-level marketing BS or some other nonsense that kind of puts a bad name on trading. Because of those dumbasses, we need better people in the industry. And if you learn something here and you become successful as a result, or you learn from ICT or some other trader that's really good and uses ICT concepts as a purist, if you gain something that's valuable and you have something that can help others, especially in this industry, I encourage you to consider trying to be public. Eventually, it's not a rush, right? And you got to get your house in order first before you try to go help others get their house in order, right? So most people try to do it the opposite way. They're trying to sell mentorship so they can trade, but it never works that way. They end up not trading at all and selling a bunch of nonsense. I don't want to breed those types of people, but I do want to let you guys or plant the seeds so you guys start to have a better view of maybe some people that do have a service. There's nothing wrong with having a service like ICT says. If you have something worthwhile and you're actually there able to prove that it works. Otherwise, you're a freaking scammer. I don't care if you say you trade ICT concepts. If you can't prove it live, like what I just did here, like I do every single week, pretty much every day, okay, with my private group, and then here on YouTube. If they can't come out and at a minimum show you live, say this is going to go here, this is going to go there, or be transparent, say I don't know at times, right? And then show you how it really needs to be done, they're not worth listening to. And you don't want to fall into that category by trying to cut corners, okay? But again, that's not to take away from the fact that you could turn this into a larger business than you can ever imagine. And again, if you have something worthwhile, it's worthwhile, it's valuable. And if it can help somebody else, just like how ICT says about services and creating these types of things, aside from your real trading, there's nothing wrong with it, okay? And I want you guys to think about this, because maybe some of you guys will become the next amazing mentor as a result of learning from me and learning from ICT, and maybe some of the handful of other ICT charter students that are public, just absolutely obliterating the market. Maybe you're the next one, and if I could play a role in that and build traders that aspire to do that, I think that's I think that's something that I would take a lot of pride in, and I'd be very, very happy with. And I want to see you explode. I want to see each and every one of you guys that spend time here, which is why I, spend so much time doing this stuff. I want to see each and every one of you guys do something spectacular. And maybe it's not going to be you going live and doing what you see me doing, or what ICT does, or what anybody else does. Maybe it's just you thriving in your own way, being able to quit your job, maybe retire your parents, maybe, pay off something for your friends that you care about, or maybe it's donate to a good cause that you want to have an impact on. Maybe you want to make the world a better place somehow, okay? And you're going to use your success to try to, accomplish a goal like that. Whatever the case may be, all of the options are open when you're a trader, and you could take this any which way you want, but make sure you have integrity doing it. because I don't want to sit here and say, yeah, there's nothing wrong with services, and then I find out that one of you guys go out and try to make a mentorship and you're not even profitable yet. Because I'll be the first one to call you out, no matter how cool we are, because I was hurt by stuff like that, and I'm sure some of you guys have been as well. So anyone watching the replay, I know that most of you guys here, pretty much all of you, probably would never fall into that category. But my channel, the things that I do, the way that I'm teaching you guys to trade, it's to better the community as a whole in terms of trading, and then also change lives in the process and pass the blessing that I've been given by God and my hard work forward, so then you guys can go and do some spectacular things too, and help me make the trading industry a better place, a more appealing place, a more integrity-based environment, because there's a lot of scumbags all over the place, and all of us have, I'm sure, been victimized by those same disgusting individuals. So I think it's a noble goal to, try to pass the blessing forward, or, take this and make it something truly special outside of yourself, and at the same time help people in the process. Okay, so I just wanted to share some of those perspectives. Normally I talk about this stuff with my private group students, but I know I have a lot of you guys that watch me live that are doing absolutely amazing, like Tony, for example, and a few others, right? And you guys have just been showing me your progress, and I know that you're well on your way. You're going to be something spectacular. And I just want to try to do my best to influence you to think in ways that most people don't think in this industry. We get into this industry, some people have, a good time and make money, and then all of a sudden they become disgusting people, and then they make the industry worse by trying to, spread the behavior that needs to be removed, right? So I just wanted to plant some of these seeds in your head. Again, a lot of people talk shit about people that have services. ICT himself has talked shit himself as well, okay? But he's not referring to, and he's made it very clear, he's not referring to people that actually know what's going on, that are willing to give you their time to try to help you become better, because they already have what you want, and they're willing and able to come out and spend time with you and help you, whether that's in a YouTube capacity, because there's still a transaction going on, right? You're giving me views, and then I'm giving you a skill set in return, right? I'm giving you wisdom and ways to do things properly so you can make this an asset in your life. So there's still a transaction going on, whether it's monetary value or not. And I don't take that lightly. That's why I come out here and I do my best to give as much value as I can, whether you come to me in a one-on-one capacity or are here with me for free. So if you have value, there's a place for you, and the industry needs you. So again, I just wanted to place some of these seeds in your mind, because it's very controversial when someone has a service, because the taste in people's mouth is, oh, everyone's a fucking scammer. Okay, and I want to try to see if my community at least can start presenting the community with people with more integrity. Okay, and then we can start making the impact a lot bigger, and then hopefully do our part to better this industry. I'm at that point in my career where that's something I'm focused on. Early on, it's not something you really focus on. You're focused on, let me get myself successful, and then I'll think about that stuff later. But once you arrive, the goalpost starts to move. So it's good to plan and think ahead, like what happens when I get there, so you're prepared. Just like how you want to prepare before you get into a trade. You want to have your target, your process, because once you arrive, you don't want to start making decisions when you've already arrived. It's stressful, and it's a weird thing as a trader, because it's not a normal job, and goals start to move. Once you achieve one thing, and you never thought you would, but you end up achieving it, like profitable trading, there's a new world that opens up now, and you start thinking, what am I going to do now? What am I going to aim for now? Because you want to stay driven. You don't want to become dull and think that, now your life has no meaning, because sometimes that happens, because we're on a massive chase to try to change our lives. But what happens when you change your life? What's the next step in your evolution as a trader, as a professional? So these are things that you'll be faced with later on. But again, I just wanted to plant the seeds and kind of address some stuff that is very controversial. And that's why I come out here and have been talking recently, like I have been, pointing out the fact that we've had, like almost 8 straight months of profitability, me hitting 80% plus strike rate with evidence. I wasn't really showing this stuff because that wasn't my intention. I don't want attention just because people think they're going to come here and take my trades and be successful. I want people to come here. That's why it's small, right? The community is exclusive, because I weed the people out that aren't really trying to learn. Okay? So, and the people that are here, the people that come here, spend time and see that there's value in things that are being taught that can help them be successful, rather than being codependent on me for the rest of their life because they're a junkie, right? It kind of weeds those people out, and that's why I'm content with this community maybe not getting massively large. I hope it does, because what I give is unrivaled. The things that we do is ridiculous. Okay, quite frankly. And the larger the community is, the more engaged the community is, the more people will be able to impact. Because again, that's one of my major goals, considering that I'm already where I want to be with trading. Obviously there's more levels that I'm going to breach as the years pass. But now it's about passing things forward. And in order for me to do that, to impact the most people, it's going to require help from you guys to spread the word, to give your thoughts, to comment, to help new traders that come here, give them, engage with them, be inviting to them, even if they trade retail logic. You know how many people I have transitioned, which I may have one already today as well. How many people I've pulled from retail trading and completely failing to then finally seeing the light and at least getting in a position where they can now progress on their own. There's been hundreds of people, and those are people outside of the 200 plus that I've already had pretty close conversations with and kind of mentored. Just a simple DM on Instagram, like conversation about trading with people that trade normal retail logic. I've been able to peel them off just by simply sharing my perspective and why these concepts are so important in a way that most people don't talk about them. So yeah, you guys are going to help me at the end of the day. You're just as valuable to this community as you feel I am. Okay? And again, I appreciate you guys for giving me your time. Obviously, if we come back to the chart, you could see that everything has continued to play out. That's why I haven't really focused on the chart, because everything has already been talked about. It's all playing out. The highs are still available. Took an execution, snapped 50 points. Already called it out. We were patient. We framed out everything that's taken place, and you could see it's just unfolding right as we said it would. We worked through times when price was going against our initial opinion, but guess what? We never dropped away from the higher time frame narrative. We were able to hold on to what it is that our opinion was, because of the things that we look at and the validity behind what it is that we do here in the WMG family, okay, as ICT traders. Okay, so hopefully that seeing this unfold for some of you that are new kind of reinforces the value here, and then hopefully it also just edifies things even further for those of you that have been with me for a while. So yeah, with that being said, because it's already 8 o'clock, we are now over the time that we like to participate. We've already called the moves. We talked about so much crap today. We've, hopefully things have made sense. But before we put a ribbon on this, I do want to ask, do you guys have any questions? Is there anything or any last minute thoughts, opinions, anything that you guys feel you need to share while we're together? I just want to make sure. So yeah, let me know in the chat if there's anything that you guys want to talk about before we close the overall session. And again, I hope you guys have gotten value. Again, if you haven't liked the video, definitely go like the video. Like I just got done talking about, it helps me reach more people. Just like you guys, as long as you're focused on what it is that, we focus on, which is trying to be successful and not be a signal junkie like most people. So you guys liking the video, leaving reviews, right? If you are part of my private group, that's very, very helpful because, like I just got done talking about as well, it's hard to trust people. And I do my part to try to get the trust of people that watch me. I go live. I mean, there's not much more I can do other than show you my bank account. I've already shown equity curves. I've shown passing a funded account. I've showed my live percentage for like 6 straight months. I mean, that's a huge sample set. If I was not profitable, there would be no way I'd be striking at an 80% strike rate within even a 1 month, let alone 6 months and to 3.5 years. So I do my part, but again, it's going to be very important. If you guys do support the channel, if you do want to see this community grow and become larger so we can help more people together, it's going to be very, very important for me to have your guys' help. And I hope that me requesting that is taken in a good light, because I just truly want to help people. I got a question the other day saying, why are you live? Why do you have if you're profitable, why are you teaching people? Why do you have a service? And I hope what I just described kind of explains why. The goalpost moves once you become profitable. Another thing too that kind of justifies and shows that money is not the main target with my private group and anything that I'm giving in terms of a service. I have literally priced my community or the apprenticeship lower than every single person in the industry. And I can tell you right now, and a lot of you guys could probably come to this conclusion as well, I trade better than probably all of them. Okay? Hands down. Like, you can go look at their stuff, watch their videos, their live calls, and then come here and see how accurate and compare it side by side. Do it for a couple months. I encourage you to do this, right? Like today, we hit a move again, right? Still high 80% strike rate. Nothing's changed. I have multiple recorded videos. I have private group students that are probably hearing me say this and nodding, yeah, he's, I wish I could call him out because it'd probably be fun. But it can't happen, okay? Because I've made it impossible simply by letting my trading talk without having to show you my bank account, without having to do this stuff. So, that's the reason why I have a service, and hopefully that makes sense. And again, hopefully that encourages you guys to also think about that as well. But I got that question earlier, yesterday actually, and hopefully that makes sense. And again, hopefully you guys are willing to help me in that regard, and help me reach more people by simply liking the video, subscribing to the channel. If you have any friends that trade and you enjoy what I do and you get value, if you're new, right, I do want you to, before you make any opinions on whether it's worthy to be here or not, I'd like you to, stick around for a while, build your own opinion. Don't just take my word for it. Don't just take good reviews, words for it. Okay? Watch what I do. Hop on live with me. Look at what's happening and then build your own opinion. And if by that time you have a solid opinion, I encourage you to spread the word. Right? Because again, you're helping me help other people. And that's the whole goal. I wouldn't have a YouTube channel. I didn't have a YouTube channel when I wasn't thinking about this as a goal, because it hasn't always been my goal. I was not ever thinking like, yeah, let's be successful in trading and then go try to teach other people. It's exhausting. You know what I mean? And I never had that thought like, yeah, let's go do that. But once I hit goals that I wanted to achieve and realized like, man, I know what I'm doing. Like, I don't even have to watch another training video or any video that has to do with ICT or anybody else ever again. I'm set. I don't need anything else. Once I hit that goal, I was like, man, okay, so what am I going to hit now aside from monetary goals? And I didn't realize that the goal post would shift. And once I realized it, I'm like, oh, well, I got value. Let's go try to now bless other people. Let's try to spread the word. Let's try to see how many lives I can impact and see if I can make a difference. And so that's where the private group came in, right? And then it's an apprenticeship. It's not necessarily like everybody else's. And like I said, it's priced well below every competition I possibly have. And again, I trade better than most of them anyway. Some of them, right, we're kind of neck and neck. Can't make an argument that I'm better or worse. Some of them, the charter students, they're really, really good. I mean, some people are just breathtaking, so there's always going to be someone better. But I can definitely trade with the best of them. And, I prove it. So it's not just meaningful words. So yeah, considering you guys don't have any more questions, again, I'll give you guys one last chance to ask questions. Give me, any of your last minute thoughts. Maybe criticism. Maybe, whatever you feel is on your mind before we close the call. But yeah, if there's no questions, okay, Tony, I appreciate you too, my brother. I appreciate you too, bro. Sincerely. You're one of the students on YouTube that started with me on the start of this year when I went on my rampage. That's all the way up until right now. When I started thinking, you know what, let's really put pressure on social media. Because before I wasn't going live every day. I was going live here and there, maybe once a month. There was like a big span of time where I didn't post for 6 months, probably more. And this year I just decided, like, man, dude, I have so many students that are doing very well. I know that there's people that would get value from what I have to share, And I know that people are hurting. I know the world is on fire in many cases. People are struggling. Life's harder for a lot of people, whether you're in America or not. And I just felt that, I should go public and be more public and try to help as many people as I can, because I've been blessed. So why not bless other people? You know what I mean? And put myself out there as a resource. So, and I'm glad I did. I've met some amazing people. Like all of you guys that are on the call right now, I know each and every one of you. I've had conversations with each and every one of you. You guys are amazing. Some have been with me for a while. Some have been with me for less than a week. And all of you guys that are here, you've been with me pretty much the whole call for 2.5 hours. So hopefully I've given you some value from today. Maybe some valuable perspective, maybe things that you haven't thought of before. And hopefully today was a day that kind of moved you forward. And again, if you guys ever have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer questions when I got time outside of my private group. And then, of course, here on live as well, which we do every week. So nobody's getting left behind, right? But it's going to be up to you to voice your issues so then I can address them. Don't be shy. Anyone that has drama or a shitty attitude will be blocked and removed from ever being here. So you don't got to worry about anyone being a dumbass, attacking you, or calling your questions dumb or any of that. Because calling someone's questions dumb is dumb. And you're going to be blocked. Okay? Because I have no tolerance for the nonsense. So, rest assured that any question you ask, there will be either people helping you or I'm going to address it right away. And you're going to get that question solved so you can move forward, because that's the goal. You'll stumble across a lot of roadblocks through this journey, both personal and technical, and whatever else will arise. So if you can get questions answered quickly and have a resource you could rely on, if I could go back, that would be an asset I would pay unlimited amount of money for, let alone having it for free, so I would take advantage of that, and I'm encouraging you guys to take advantage of that because that's why I'm here. All right. So yeah, again, I appreciate you guys for being patient with me throughout the call today. As you can see, our patience paid off. Full target has been completely met. It's always beautiful to see. And yet again, we just add another day to the streak. Market maker buy model fully delivered. I should have freaking held it, as is generally the case. But, we're cool with our 20 to 30 points. We ended up getting 50 today. So that's double what I normally target. So it's good enough. You don't got to worry about missing a move because who gives a shit? We'll never miss a move. It's always there. And today proved it as well. And we didn't engage the first hour up until, almost an hour. We waited and waited and waited and waited and waited, painted different scenarios. And when the time was right, we struck and price beautifully delivered. The rolling balance price range, line in the sand, all those levels continue to hold, basically giving you context as far as why price should continue. So I gave you the why, I gave you the what, when, where, how, okay? And hopefully everything made sense. I told you when I was unsure, but I still was rooted in the higher time frame, which proves yet again to have paid off. So everything that I talked about today, everything that you've witnessed today, has had a purpose. Even the times when I was like, I don't really know, we're going to have to wait. There was a purpose for that. Because if I would have executed when I wasn't sure, even though I still had my opinion focused on the higher time frame previous weekly high, if I would have engaged, that would have been outside of my rules. And if you're uncertain, you got to wait. Because as I've proven today and for the last 8 months, there's things that will give you clarity and confidence. You just have to wait for them. And, before you decide to wait for them, you have to first of all know what to wait for. And hopefully today I was able to paint some of that or get you guys understanding some of the elements that are involved in terms of what you need to wait for. Okay? But yeah. So again, thank you guys for hopping on. I think I've talked your ears off enough today. But hopefully you guys got value. Hopefully if it's your first time on the call, I know some of you guys, it's your first time. Hopefully you enjoyed this session. Hopefully I was able to leave an impression that is worthwhile. And I hope to see you guys here regularly when we go live. And again, enrollment for my private group. If you, over the next couple months, decide that you do want to work closer with me and my group, that'll be available. I'll let you guys know when. It's only open sometimes throughout the year, like 2 or 3 times a year. And generally I announce it, right? But yeah. And if you want to join that, maybe get on so I could put you down as a possible future student, you could let me know through DMs and we can talk about it. Otherwise, if you just think that this is enough for you, so be it, and I'm grateful. And again, I hope you guys got value. And we go live every Tuesday around the time that we went live today. And then Sundays as well for our weekly prep call, which sets the stage, sets the tone for what we're going to look at as the week progresses. And yet again, our weekly bias, our weekly analysis, and our Sunday call, everything that we outlined has perfectly came to fruition yet again. Okay? So damn near perfect every single week in terms of where it's going to go. But not perfect in terms of execution because you can't expect to be perfect. But high 80%, I think it's pretty good. Okay? And I think you guys will agree. All right? So yeah, that being said, again, thank you. God bless each and every one of you. We will be live again here on YouTube on Sunday around 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll decide closer to that time when I want to get started. And maybe earlier, maybe later. But I'll let you guys know. If you haven't followed me on Instagram, definitely follow me on Instagram. If you haven't liked the video, definitely like the video. Subscribe to the channel. If you feel you got value from today, spread the word. Help me help other people and better this industry as a whole. And yeah, you're appreciated. And like I said, I'll see you guys on Sunday. So hope you have a good day, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.